Welcome to On Texas Football. I'm Bobby Burton, joined by Rod Babers. Time for the grades of the game last night. Rod, it was a tough one to stomach for Texas fans, but we got to do this each and every week to kind of go over what we saw from that game. You're joining me instead of normally Jerry Hamilton's involved, but he's got a dead car battery. So, Rod B., you're as qualified as anyone to step in. I appreciate you doing this, bud. Let's start with the Texas offense and at quarterback, Quinn Ewers. His final game as a Longhorn, announced before the game that he was definitely going pro, finishes 23 of 39 for 283 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. But was it enough? I think it was a good game from Ewers, but not perfect. But was it enough to possibly win? That's the question that'll be we'll ask ourselves for a long period of time after that second and one from the second goal call from the one. What did you think of Ewers' performance, though, on Friday night?
There were flashes, but just not enough consistency at that level, right? Against that caliber of opponent in Ohio State, talking about what potentially could end up being the national champion. They needed him to put the cape on, and we just didn't see that, honestly, throughout enough stretches. There was a nice stretch for him in the second half where he was moving really well in the pocket, making plays. Remember the play where, he gets it off the third down, where he gets it off to Blue at the last minute. I mean, that was a beautiful play right there. Just showed great pocket awareness by him. And so there were flashes, just not consistent enough stretches for him to put the team on his back in critical moments, third downs, of course, in the red zone as well. So I gotta go, honestly, and I like Quinn, but I'm gonna go C. I'm gonna go C plus here.
All right, I'll go B minus. I feel similar to you in that there just wasn't enough. Here's a stat that kind of encapsulated in one drive in the third quarter, one of the best drives of the season for the Longhorns, including that flip to Trey Wisner, the outlet pass to Jaden Blue. He made some late moves in the pocket that bought him just an extra second of time to get the ball off. They were 4 for 4 on third downs on that drive. The rest of the game, Texas was 1 of 11 on third down. That just isn't good enough, in my opinion. And some of that falls on play calling. Some of it falls on offensive line, running backs. I mean, all of them combined. But I'm going to go B minus. I think he did his best, but in my opinion, maybe his best just wasn't good enough. That being said, look, Quinn Ewers did so much for the program. You can nitpick all we want, but ultimately he's going to be remembered as the quarterback that led Texas back from almost college football wasteland. And I know that's harsh reality, but that's exactly where Texas was 4 years ago when Steve Sarkisian took this job, and 3 years ago after a 5-7 season after Sark's first year. So hats off to Quinn Ewers. Always will be remembered in my eyes as a great Longhorn. Let's go to the running backs. Outside of their ability in the pass game, and they did okay on pass protection, I thought they just didn't make yardage. Was the yardage not there, or was some of that the running backs themselves, or maybe a mix of it for you, Rod B?
I don't know if the yards were there. I liked a few of the concepts early on that Texas was running. Came through some power schemes, ran some counters successfully early on in the game. But I just didn't think the running backs had much running room when it came to traditional running game. But we know that Sark loves to use his running backs in the passing game, does as well as anybody in the country. And your running backs, I believe, led you in receptions, if I'm not mistaken. So I like that. Jaden Blue got you 2 touchdowns on the wheel concept as well. That's been really successful for the Longhorns this year. So I liked what the running backs did. I thought they actually kind of made the most of their opportunities. I'm going to give the running backs a B. I'm going to give them a B on this one. Maybe, I'm even leaning toward B plus with them because I really like what they did. I mean, you can only, as a running back, work with the yards that an offensive line is going to create for you. We'll get to them in a second, but I thought the running backs did good. So I'm going to go B.
Yeah, I agree with a B plus. They were the leading receivers. Trey Wisner led with 6 catches. Jaden Blue had 5, 2 touchdowns. I did not think they were a problem in pass protection either. They weren't a negative there. So I agree with that. I just don't think, to your point, I don't think the run lanes were there. Wide receivers, a weird story here. You lose your number one guy after he makes a beautiful one-handed catch on the first drive. He only comes back and makes one more catch for the rest of the game because he got his ankle rolled up on. Ryan Wingo had a nice game as well, but most of that was in the blocking. He had that one reverse and then had one catch for 22 yards. DeAndre Moore had 4 catches. But did Texas, Isaiah Bond, 1 catch, 1 drop?
Oh,
but did Texas get enough from its wide receivers? Were they open enough, in your opinion? And what grade do you give them, Rod?
They did force some penalties, so I'll give them credit for that too. Forced some pass interference calls. Probably should have had a couple of more early on. But man, when your running backs are leading you in receptions, just not enough big plays. And I know losing Matthew Golden early on and him having to deal with an injury that had a lot to do with. I'm gonna go with this group. I'm probably gonna go around the same. I'll go C+. I just didn't get enough big plays in separation from those guys down the stretch either. And like I said, you just did not enough productivity overall from that group. That ugly drop by Bond, I mean, that was a little bit ugly too. And I thought in critical downs, third downs, you were just talking about it. I mean, it's your running backs who came up big for you, not necessarily your wide receivers all the time.
That's absolutely right, and I think that's the question. Silas Bolden had a nice night.
He did.
I want to hats off to him. He had an impact in the game and a good stuff there. But overall, C+, B- for the receivers. Not unlike, in my opinion, Quinn Ewers. Very similar nights, right? And good in spots, but not consistent enough to win that football game, maybe at best. All right, next tight ends, Gunnar Helm and Juan Davis getting all of the work at that position. Juan Davis with a catch early. He's one of my favorite players on the team, by the way. Talking about a guy that could have transferred, and I wrote this on ontexasfootball.com this morning. Him and David Benda are what's right about college football and about the Longhorn culture right now. I know you can sit here and say the Jahdae Barons and Michael Taft, they're getting their plaudits. They're getting their accolades. A guy like Juan Davis stays 4 years, finally gets his chance to show out. David Benda loses his job early in the year, comes back and still makes plays in the biggest game of the year. Those guys special. But Gunnar Helm had some receptions, had some nice plays. Did have that personal foul / taunting penalty. That did not really hurt Texas because Texas came back and got back down on the 1 yard line there. Would you have liked to even seen more use of Gunnar Helm, Rod B? And that would be my biggest question as much as the grade.
I agree with you on that. And he played a lot more 12 personnel, especially early on. He started out, I believe, in 12 personnel in that game. And I'm with you. I think you could have used a little bit more Gunnar Helm because it looks like they were trying to take advantage of the linebackers in coverage. And, I mean, Gunnar Helm over the middle probably could have been one of your, I think, a guy that could have actually been more of a difference maker. And you look at it overall, they ran that tight end leak again. That play is money, and it works every time. So it seems like, I think Sark could have dialed up a couple of more plays potentially for him. They used a lot of targets to motion. He also had that, unfortunately, I don't know if it's called a drop as much as a broken up pass when he had the pass right over the middle there. And the linebacker came, jarred the ball. It was a really good play by the defender. I think you could have schemed up more for him. So I like it. I like what the tight ends did. I'll go overall with that group. That's a B for me. I don't know if it was spectacular, but like I said, I think ultimately the play calling could have given those guys a little bit more opportunity, considering that's somebody that Quinn trusts. And when Quinn's in trouble, and he was doing a lot of maneuvering in the pocket to create some time, just couldn't find the tight ends enough, in my opinion.
I'm going to give them B- because I do think that they were part of the issue maybe in the run game, in my opinion. Good overall grade, again, just not quite good enough at this point. Offensive line, Rod, this is gonna maybe be the most disappointing group of the night last night.
Easy.
In my opinion, did not get the run game going. Also, a lot of pressure created on Quinn Ewers. Maybe he self-sacked a couple of times, but Ohio State did not bring the house very often. Yet they were still getting home with 4. quite often. And Texas couldn't open up any run lanes, or at least not substantial ones, consistently. Is this what did Ohio State's defensive line beat Texas' offensive line? I think the answer is yes.
No doubt.
It's indicative of the play call on 2nd and goal from the 1. You agree?
There's no question about it. And I mean, overall, that group, I mean, I'll give them a D, honestly. For, 1st and goal on the 1 yard line, that is supposed to be the time the O-line imposes its will and steps up, especially an O-line that prides themselves on being big humans. That was I think the occasion for them to really, make that kind of statement. And we did not see that. And I think ultimately Sark knows that too, because Sark didn't have necessarily the trust in those guys to be able to play power football and bully football in that moment on the 1 yard line. He chose some other, options. And I think he's done that, throughout the season, actually, on some critical short yardage situations. We saw the solids both in and around against Arizona State, against Georgia. He did an in and around with Ryan Ringo. Brilliant play designs, no doubt. But I think at the heart of those decisions being such calculated risks, it does show you that maybe Sark doesn't have the trust that his O-line can just impose their will and run downhill on somebody.
It almost feels like he felt like he had to run a pro-style run system to get short yardage. I mean, no offense, but that's what the Kansas City Chiefs do. And that's what a lot of NFL teams are forced to do because the defensive fronts they go up against are so active and so impressive. Maybe that's part of what happened. But for this to occur 2 games in a row when the season's on the line, and I mean that by Arizona State and Ohio State, tough sledding there at the end of the year for a unit that brought back 4 starters from a year ago and a lot of 3rd-year starters on it or 4th-year starters.
You can only generate in the 2 playoff games, you generated 1 rush, 1 explosive run. So 1 rush of 10 yards or more. And that was at the end, I believe, the end of the half of Ohio State, where basically Ohio State was playing, they essentially playing prevent defense. They just let you have I think it was a 12-yard run or something like that. That's it. So when it mattered, you could not generate explosive runs at all. That is something I think Texas this offseason, they got to go back to the drawing board and figure out, all right, when we're in games with competitive games against more elite opponents or high caliber opponents, why can't we run the ball effectively? That's Georgia, right? That's, obviously Ohio State, and I throw Arizona State in there, but that was a college football playoff game. So that's a high caliber opponent, and you're not able to run the football effectively and create explosive runs. That's a problem. It's a problem.
Hey, Rod, let's talk about the offense overall now. This is the pregame comment that we looked at, okay? And what Ohio State was giving up overall. Ohio State was giving up just 245 yards a game in total, right? Well, Texas easily surpassed that, 341 yards, 152 yards passing. Sark and Quinn engineered 283 yards. But the rush yards well below 58 yards a game, 58 yards for Texas on Friday night compared to the 92 they normally give up. Is that really what this offensive output came down to? They couldn't run the ball to supplement what they could get done in the passing game? Is that, so how do you think of that overall? And then there's something else you brought up in the post game that you mentioned you were a little disappointed in, and I think it's fair, offensive creativity for Sark in this game. We saw a little bit of pony package. We saw a little bit of 5 wides, but did we see enough of that maybe to keep Ohio State defense at bay? What do you think?
I think once you're running, that's why even leading up to the game, my thought was have a plan ready, a contingency plan when the run game doesn't work. Because I just didn't think it was going to work. Just watching Texas last few weeks, I didn't think a run game was going to work. It didn't really work for Ohio State. And I just don't think that was enough of a counter for him. Now, you went to the running backs obviously in the backfield, in the flats. And I think that was a great way to, supplement some of that production. But I think overall, I think more creativity and innovation from Sark. We know he's a brilliant play designer. I didn't see enough unique elements. And I said this, leading up to the game, it may just be at this point, the playbook is exhausted. We never been through this many games. Never. And you had competitive games. right?
16 games, yeah.
16 games. Went to overtime a couple of times. Like, that's a lot of plays you're throwing out there. And he doesn't like to, throw out the same plays, game after game. And that's not really what Sark does. And I just think that maybe that played a role as well, that I didn't see enough tendency breakers offensively. Things that I can chart as unique and kind of the new play designs or new formations. I didn't see enough of that. Things that are not on film that Ohio State could not be prepared for. I don't know if I saw that. And I think you have to have some of that in these big games. And I think it helps.
Gotcha. Yep, I agree. What grade do you give overall? Even though, Ohio State has the number 1 ranked defense in the country. Texas got 20 first downs. What do you think overall for the grade for offense?
Overall for the offense, I'm gonna go with a B- overall. B- overall. You scored 14 points, should have easily had 21. But that's why you got a minus.
I tell you what, Rod, I'm going C, as in close, but no cigar. That's going to be it. And tough sledding, tough way to end the season for a unit that had its up and downs this year, but did lead the team to 13 wins. You got to remember that and keep it in perspective, because as close as they were last night, still a good overall effort by Texas this year on offense. Not perfect. No one's saying that, but certainly good enough to win 13 games is very, very solid. All right, before we go to defense, I want to say thank you real quick to our sponsor. That is Allegiant Digital Marketing. Among the top challenges business owners face, the most difficult ones include finding new customers, increasing brand awareness, digital advertising, and lead generation. For more than 25 years, Allegiant Digital Marketing founder and CEO Chad Markham, a UT grad and instructor of the Digital Marketing Bootcamp here at UT Austin, has helped thousands of businesses overcome these very challenges. Take advantage of their Hook 'em Horn special and save up to $2,500 in advertising. Visit allegiantdigital.com/ontexasfootball to learn more today. Again, allegiantdigital.com/ontexasfootball. Help your business get kickstarted in the new year. All right, the defense, Rod, boy, it looked like it might be a blowout early. Ohio State walked the ball down the field, and then momentum changed, and Texas defense stood tall for most of this contest until late in the fourth quarter, when, frankly, I think Ohio State got away with a hold on a third down conversion that extended a drive that led to the eventual game go-ahead touchdown. What'd you think of the defensive front? Let's start there.
D-line, I thought ultimately you were able to keep the explosive runs and chunk yardage runs neutralized for Ohio State. That was big for me, and being able to stop it with an even or even a lighter box at times. I thought they did a good job with that ultimately, and was able to, throughout the game, as the game wore on, get to apply some pressure, mostly when, especially when Colin Simmons was kind of added into the mix. I'll go with the D-line. I'm going to go with I'll go B+ D-line. I like the way the D-line played. I thought they played pretty well. There was not a lot of leakage. Every now and then you saw Ohio State put together, that third quarter, and they had a really, really good drive, added the quarterback run game. That's really, really tough. Hadn't had that. But I think, an offense as explosive as they've been, and the counters, which has been really, really effective for them, they weren't able to consistently do that against the Texas D-line. So I'll give them I like what the D-line did. And, they didn't get a lot of offensive support either.
Yes. I'm going to go with an A- on that front, because I think Colin Simmons absolutely affected the game. Yeah. I thought Colton Vossick came in and played well. Yeah, Vernon Broughton made some plays. Alfred Collins, Bill Norton made a big stop as well. I thought the defensive line played well enough, if that makes sense, and actually had some of the best plays of the game from the defense overall. And so I think that a team that stops an Ohio State unit that's averaging 36 points a game and holds them to 21, doing a pretty good job overall. Barron Sorrell, what a career. Congratulations to him. Jermaine Lole, those guys, all stalwarts in the middle. And we saw Alex January early too as well. So good group. Linebackers. Anthony Hill, kind of hit or miss. Leon Galafau, I thought, was solid throughout. David Benda with a big third down stop and an interception. What a way to cap his career as a Longhorn. What do you think about the Texas linebackers, Rod?
Yeah, that's interesting. Anthony Hill did have a sack too, didn't he? I believe in the game as well. Yeah, that's interesting. That's because I like the way the D line played. I'm trying to think if it's more of the defensive front or the linebackers. So I'll go with the linebackers. I'll go with a B. I'll go to B plus as well for the linebackers overall with the front. There were times I thought, maybe the linebackers could have been in better position on a couple of those runs, but they didn't have a bunch. They didn't have a lot of those. That was like 4 or 5 runs I can remember with them kind of popping, and you just got to give Ohio State credit for that. Making some big plays too, getting the sack from that group, and also getting an interception from the linebackers. Yeah, I'm close to probably going A minus, but I'll go B plus with that group as well.
I'm good with that. Perhaps the one play that stings is that 75-yard touchdown.
Yeah, it does. That's why everybody's going to be able to B. Nobody gets an A because of that.
Yeah.
Nobody. No, man. Cut that out.
That did not look good on film, on review, or what have you. Really only one, and that was a letdown. I mean, just a complete letdown right at the end of the half. Something that couldn't and shouldn't happen, especially in a game as big as this. But it happened. Texas did, I think, come back in the second half, have a good half overall, only allowing one real drive even by the Buckeyes in the second half. All right, next one, secondary.
Ooh.
Jeremiah Smith, 1 catch, 4 yards.
Wow.
So either that secondary is that good, they're that smart, and PK's got that bright a plan, or what? I mean, they clearly gave Will Howard stuff over the middle and weren't going to let Jeremiah Smith beat him one-on-one. What did you make of that Texas secondary that has so many veterans as part of it, whether it's Andrew Makuba, Jahdae Barron, Michael Taft, those guys?
Yeah, I mean, I'm giving that group an A, in my opinion, to hold Jeremiah Smith to 1 catch, 4 years. And they didn't change much of their identity to do it. There was talk that, maybe they may match, match them, which means have one cornerback, one specific guy, maybe Jahdae Barron, follow Jeremiah Smith around, shadow him. They didn't do that, and they don't do that. That's not what Texas does. Texas does not move their corners in that manner. I mean, CJ had the suggestion that, hey, the old Bill Belichick model where you have your number 2 cornerback matched up on their number 1 wide receiver, Jeremiah Smith, but he's got help over the top, and put Jahdae Barron on their number 2 wide receiver and let him go one-on-one. They didn't do that either. They didn't do anything. They pretty much played left and right, but they had intent in every coverage to keep eyes on him. Basically, Jeremiah Smith had what we call gravity. He had gravity. It means all defenders were attracted to him, which opened up a lot of stuff over the middle for some of the other receivers, tight ends, and some of the other receivers. And I think that's where you saw, them get some yardage. But their intention deliberately, in a premeditated fashion, was to have safeties' eyes and linebackers, underneath defenders, help defenders' eyes on Jeremiah Smith. And so they were always around him. So as a quarterback, he didn't necessarily see these big windows. There were a couple of times where there were some opportunities for Jeremiah Smith. One of them actually was on the it was the deep route Makuba ends up defending. Great speed turn by Makuba, ends up on top. Jahdae Barron ends up a help defender on the other side of the formation from a condensed set. That was one of the only times where they kind of got him one-on-one downfield with not a lot of help, and then Jahdae Barron comes from the other side as a help defender. So they did a great job. What I said, basically making sure he had gravity. And I would give them an A for that. That was spectacular to be able to take away one of the best weapons in college football, but not change who you are defensively to do it.
I got to give my hat tip to Pete Kwiatkowski for that defensive scheme.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll finish. I'll do an A minus because I felt like they lacked in tackling a couple times, especially on the outside, a couple of key moments, and on that 75-yard the screen pass. Those things I felt like they could have done better, but from a coverage standpoint, pretty darn good. What about the defense overall? this was a good enough effort, in my opinion, to win this football game. You agree?
Yep.
Whereas the offense wasn't quite good enough, the defense was good enough. That's how I feel about grading these two units. I gave a C to the offense. I'm going to give a B to the defense overall. What do you think?
I'll give I'll go. I know I'm going A- with the defense, man.
Oh wow, you really like the D.
I like the D, man. This is an explosive offense, and they couldn't find a rhythm. They had to score early on, and honestly, that was bad effort and execution on that 75-yard touchdown. But the play call was terrible, guys. That call was just as bad as Sark's second and goal call, the toss. It was just as bad, guys. It was just as egregious, in my opinion. Why would you drop Colin Simmons? Why are we playing NASCAR if Colin Simmons is dropping back into coverage? Why is he doing that? And why are we using Jalen Gilbo as a simulated pressure guy? Why don't we just rush Colin Simmons and let Jalen Gilbo do what he does best, which is cover, and let Colin Simmons do what he does best, which is rush the passer. That was a bad call.
Yeah,
that was a really bad call. So yes, the defense should have executed, but they were not put in a really good position on that one at all.
Yeah. That play and maybe that 75-yard play, and then maybe the Will Howard run were the two that they got over on Texas. The fourth down run from Will Howard, 4th and 3.
QB.
Those two maybe the toughest plays, but that's not many when you consider how explosive the Ohio State offense is. All right, special teams. We'll be brief here. Not much of note. Silas Bolden looked like he was popping off a punt return, then fumbled it. Always an experience when Silas is back there. I think that's fair. But both teams, really, special teams did not come into play here. Michael Kern actually had one of his better days as a Longhorn, in my opinion, as a punter. Will Stone did handle the extra points. We wondered all week whether that would be Stone or Burt Auburn. Stone got the call. A B-, a B, kind of a stalemate, really, more than anything at special teams. And there's nothing wrong with that, right?
No. They weren't a liability for you. It didn't hurt you. I just don't, like I said, I don't know if it helped you either. So yeah, I'm with you. I'd probably go with a B or B-, B- around there, because they weren't a liability. Nothing hurts you from special teams. And Stark said he wanted some better field position, but there were times when they got good field position in the games. And I thought that Silas Bolden return that he fumbled, oh man, he was really close to popping it. If he holds on to the ball, he's got 2-3 blockers in front of him, and they are good to go. It was a left return, and he had blockers in front of him. And I think that's what he saw, and he relaxed a little bit with the football. Great play by the Ohio State defender to come in and just knock it away. But go back and look at it, guys. He's got space. That may be another play to help Texas win the game. I mean, he would have 2 back-to-back games potentially.
I don't know if you noticed this, but I did notice one thing, and that's that 3 different punts of Ohio State, Texas literally just kept its defense on the field and put Silas Bolden deep. So they were not going to get another fake punt run on them.
That's exactly right.
I'll just put it that way. Yep. So maybe you learn, I guess, a little bit.
Lesson.
Yeah. So, all right, Rod, thanks again to our sponsor. That is Allegiant Digital Marketing, and that is our friend Chad Markham over there. Appreciate him very much. Again, visit allegiantdigital.com/ontexasfootball to take advantage of their Hook 'em Horn special. Save up to $2,500 in advertising. Again, allegiantdigital.com/ontexasfootball. If you're looking to help yourself and your business find customers, increase brand awareness, digital advertising, and lead generation. Thank you to Chad and his good team over there. All right, Rod, thank you so much for filling in for Jerry. We've got more coming up today, including a lot of guys got to make NFL decisions. There are NIL decisions to be made. There are new players coming to campus right now as well. I mean, they're actually guys that there's an official visitor, we believe, on campus. Nice. From the portal. A lot of stuff going on in Austin. For Rod Babers and our producer, Matt Hutchinson, I'm Bobby Burton. Y'all hook 'em.
Hook 'em.